guess the best place to start probably would be after I had gone through high school and came here to junior college. And the very first semester that I was here, Pearl Harbor was bombed that December. And so that made quite a change in my life, because I then enlisted in the aviation cadet program, flying program of the Army Air Corps. I was a Christian when I went in. I had been saved and lived a good, clean life, and I'm not perfect, but it was during some of those experiences when my faith was really tested, and helped me to not only remain true, but to show my life for Christ. Testing of your faith, and testing of your very way of living and life. We once we got into combat, when we got into some pretty tough situations, why some of my crew would come to me. I would try to get to chapel every Sunday if we were able, if we weren't flying. And when it got pretty tough up there, why they say, well, if it's that rough up there, we're gonna go to chapel with you, which they did. And so there were times, however, when only God could gotten us through. Probably the most severe one was when my right wingman was rammed by a kamikaze pilot and taken out. And it was so intense that nobody got out of the plane. They just couldn't even get out to parachute in. The closure rate was almost 1,000 miles an hour between your speed and theirs. And the second plane came for us. And over 60 years ago, and I can still visualize that pilot in that plane coming right in our nose. There's physically, and I've had enough physics that I know there's no way he could miss us. But he did. And so there's where I say there was no question it was divine intervention. And that was one situation. Another was we were shot up pretty bad, and we finally got to another island and landed. And the base engineer came out and just turned around, looked at me and said, "You shouldn't even be here. That wing should never have stayed on. We'd already lost one engine. This was the second one." So these are times when there's no question what God had his hand over us and brought us in. Why us? I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't have any answer for some of those, like my right wingman who got hit and was taken out. But God was good. I finished up active and reserve 41 years. And a number of those years was right here at the college, where I was the liaison officer for the Air Force Academy and had 50 schools I was responsible for in this area. I'd only had a year of college, so I came back and graduated from junior college in spring of '46. To see the progression of the campus and programs was just phenomenal. I still pinch myself to have to make myself believe that this has all happened. One of my first cousins came as president, and he needed a dean of men, and nailed me to come, and also they needed a coach, because I coached basketball and track, and then eventually started the baseball program. As I mentioned before, I traveled quite a few miles, both on land and sea and in the air. But I did start recruiting in Japan and Taiwan and Hong Kong, and made a number of trips on those occasions. Got quite a few students from that. In fact, my first trip over was when our son and his wife were on visa, and so I came over, and went to one of the schools that they taught at, Canadian Academy, and we got a number of students out of that. We got 8 students that very first year, just came in cold. So I certainly think that the hand of God was in it all. There's no question about that. I'm reminded of the riots in Detroit, in the 68 riots, 67, 68, right along in there. And we were in a cabinet meeting with the president one day right during or after that. And Dr. McKenna said, he said, I think we should do something as a Christian college to help some of those students that were affected by that. So he said, and the cabinet agreed, we voted on it, that we would accept 10 students that really were affected by the tuition free. Well, that was fine and good, but then how do you get them? And so he told me, he said, you go in and start looking. So we got a hold of a good Christian minister, and he arranged to have a bunch of students come and meet with us on a Saturday morning. And that's the way we started it, and we ended up with 7. 2 or 3 years later, I was in the big Sunday school convention at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and a black minister came to my Spring Arbor display that I had there. He started mentioning about this, and I said, well, you know, I was really disappointed because out of those 7, only 2 actually came back and really followed through on that. He looked at me and he said, 2 out of 7 came back? I said, yeah. He said, that's great. That's great. He knew what the percentages were or something like this. So we got a lot of good ink out of that whole program. I come home to retire every year from Florida, and all I do is my gardening and my lawn and help out little projects here and there. But when we go to Florida, I go down there to work. And we have about a dozen guys that we travel with. We went to Mississippi after Katrina 3 years in a row in February to rehab about 25 houses. We went up to Atlanta after a real bad flood here a couple of years ago, rehabbed a number of houses. So I was in devotions one night. It just all at once struck me. I said, Lord, if you give me the health and just enough shekels or dollars or whatever, I'll go on missions, trips, whatever you want. And he held me to it, but it's been a privilege. 2 different trips to Africa, building churches, Venezuela 3, 4 times, Brazil, Mexico, and then there's Haiti, a couple, 3 trips. So he held me to it, but he provided. And I'll be 89 my next birthday, and I don't take a medication of any kind. So you talk about an answer to prayer. That's proof.